Welcome to the Play Typer Guide podcast. I'm Stephen Robinson. Joining me for this bonus edition, can't believe we're talking about this, is my friend Lynne Streeter Childress. How are you, Lynne?
I'm good, Stephen. It's good to be anywhere, actually. It's good to be here. Yes.
So, for those who might be unaware, the BAFTAs was a few days ago. Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were presenting, and I believe John Davidson, who lives with Tourette syndrome, shouted the N-word, and not the N-word, but the full Tarantino at them, and everything after that went sideways. As bad as being called the N-word publicly could be, Alan Cumming, who I adore, but he came out, his first statement is one of those, having been married for longer than 5 minutes, I know you never should say, which is, I'm sorry if you were offended. That is the couch sleeping special. Do not. So, as I have learned, just say I am sorry for the harm I have obviously caused. Like, because are there people who aren't offended by being called the N-word? But like, I'm sorry that this happened. This sucks. What is your take on this? Like, how people have been responding?
I have so many, and it goes back and forth and in and out and all of the things. So the big thing has been, well, there have been sort of two things, well, many things, but one of them is people, I guess, misunderstanding this, it's corporalia. I can't remember exactly that's what it's called, but this piece of Tourette's, which is the thing where you do yell out involuntary things. And it's not everyone who has Tourette's doesn't have that piece of it. And so there are people who are like, nope, I don't believe it. They made it up, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe it at all. It's an actual thing. It's an actual disorder. It actually happens. Also, as I understand it, it's the kind of thing where it's lack of inhibition, and you say the thing like he said F you to the queen, right? Mm-hmm. Supposedly too, and I just found out today, that he actually, even before this happened with Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan, he actually supposedly said something to Alan Cumming when he was on some derogatory anti-gay thing. Supposedly that's what they sort of led you believe. Mm-hmm. But this is this. I've seen things where they say that people with this disability and people with disabilities, and again, I'm not sure. I mean, okay, I have ADHD, which I just found that I had a few years ago, which actually is on the list of disabilities, right? So I get that, but I haven't lived with it. I haven't lived with the knowledge of that. But this is what I understand, is that supposedly they tell people to not apologize for your disability, right? And so some people see them calling for an apology as an apology for its disability, or the disability. But no, it is, if I step on someone's foot, even if it was an accident, I'm going to apologize because I caused them discomfort, right?
That's just general human behavior.
Right. If I had that, I mean, again, I don't have that. So please, if you're a disability advocate, I'm not saying that my suppose I did are the same as understanding this. And I would say though, that if a person with that who was Black, or even had yelled out, you slut to somebody at that thing, would that be seen as something that they should apologize for? Because we know this, Stephen, when you are called that word, you're not trying to suss out, oh, I'm not supposed to feel bad about it. And on those men's faces, on those gentlemen's faces, you saw everything, because we are taught that we are supposed to accept all the things and make other people not feel bad, right? And I had this one thought that seemed rather eloquent to myself, but maybe it probably isn't. My sister thought it was, but she's my twin, so she doesn't count. But this is what I was thinking. You know how when you cause somebody distress and you apologize, we often want the other person to say, "Oh, that's okay," right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we want them to say, "Oh, it's fine," or "Don't worry about it," right? Even if it wasn't fine, right? Somewhere in us, we want that person to just absolve us, right?
They want absolution, which I am terrible. I'm someone who never does. My wife jokes about that. I'm not good at making like this. Yes, this has been an inconvenience, or this has been bad. Like I will say thank you, or okay, I will accept the apology. And that goes back to your previous thing, because I think it's a larger debate about people fundamentally not getting how apologies work. So the example I thought of was Michael J. Fox, has Parkinson's.
Yes.
He has involuntary movements. If he was presenting with, say, Anne Hathaway has an involuntary movement, slaps her in the face, he would apologize in a charming way, because he's a charming man. And Anne Hathaway would accept that apology, obviously differently than, Will Smith or some other person coming in and literally slapping her
on purpose.
Like that's where intent matters. So the idea is that if I did not intend to harm, I should not apologize. That's what I'm seeing. And that's not, I don't get on that. Like there's the harm. It doesn't matter what your intent is. You caused harm. You say as a human being, I am sorry for the harm I'm caused. I'm sorry. Like if I got sick on your wedding dress, right, for your wedding, and you had to get married and puke, even if I'm not I'm ill, I have, maybe I'm going through chemotherapy. It's not like, oh no, you're saying that cancer patients should not go to a family wedding or something. No,
right.
Like it happens. I'm expressing, oh, I am sorry. You accept that far differently than if I just, threw up on you or poured something. Oh, that'd be funny.
Right.
It's like how you take that apology is accept. The idea of like not apologizing was just bizarre to me, and to see that from people, and even if you're disability advocates, a lot of advocates in every realm, even our own, but they can be a little off. Not quite where they should be about human behavior.
No, I think too, again, one of the reasons I think, and I know when I have to apologize, like to my kid or to my husband, I don't want to do it because I don't want to, or if I don't want to do it, I usually go ahead and do it, right? But there are times when it's hard for me to do it, is because I know that I really messed up, or I know I don't want to risk them not accepting my apology, right? So sometimes if you just pretend it didn't happen, everybody's okay, right? Which we know is not the truth and not the case. Should have brought it down on my my pastor at church did this thing that he printed out about how to give an apology, and one of the things was not to come up with a bunch of excuses, right? If it was something that you did right, I mean, you can explain, but not to be like, I'm sorry if I hurt you, I'm sorry that, right? I'm sorry that I caused you pain. If I'm late to something and people had to wait for me, or I messed stuff up, I need to apologize. Even if it was traffic, right? If it wasn't me just leaving the house late. If it was seriously, I did everything that I could do, I still need to apologize for the fact that I've wasted people's time and this isn't going the best. And I said something on Threads, and it's this though, again, bringing the race thing into it, but I'll just say this. I think that generally we want people to accept our apologies, our whoever the hour is. And though I also think that Black people have been expected to accept slights, and we've expected to, go, okay, right? And then, shake it off later. And I think it's acceptable because supposedly this gentleman, they said F you to the queen and apologized immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's not that he couldn't apologize, but there's something about that thing. And again, supposedly he left the thing halfway through. So it's not like he was there going, woo, F you, like happily and making it rain and popping bottles and happy about what happened. He reportedly was really ashamed. And the worst thing, he's there to rep a movie about him called I Swear, and the worst thing in the world happens, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's sort of also to get further into that, because someone had said, like, oh, you shouldn't have to apologize for your disability. He had been said insulting things before. So you're saying every time you go out in public, you have to apologize. And I'm sort of thinking, well, yes, that's actually the disability. Because if you're just sort of going through the world being rude and no one could actually check you, that's just being a Trump. Like, that's not an actual, like, having to sort of deal. That is part of navigating in the world. Because I don't understand. I mean, otherwise, if you're going up to Michael B. Jordan or Delroy Lindo and calling them the N-word, you better have an explanation. I think you're going to have to, like, I am sorry, I have a condition. Please don't hurt me. It should be the three things you say to a Black person. So the idea that I never have to explain, which is absurd. Of course, you're going to have to apologize and explain, unless there's a medical alert bracelet that you're like. Other than that, like, generally, if you go up to someone and insult them, and I think this also goes to the perception of Tourette's, unfortunately, because and how it's been in media.
Yes.
For those of us who first exposed to it, regrettably, through a Living Color sketch, which still abuses me, but even though I will send it to you after this. It is probably not aged well. It's David Alan Grier. It's hysterical, but but in many of those things of someone with Tourette's, it's just blurting out random things. It is usually perceived as not entirely cruel. It is just like, like almost, or even the versions where it's like sort of when a child says, oh, look at the fat lady, or look at this. It's things that are, again, the idea of a child just randomly calling someone a racial slur is very different from, like, I've had, very liberal people kind of freak out if their kid goes, oh, his skin is brown, which is not mean. It's just like kids, a 2-year-old notices that things are different. They've never seen, like, that's very different from the N-word. And that it is the debate of, like, it is not, even fuck the queen is very specific to her as a person. The N-word is utterly dehumanizing. Richard Pryor has a great routine about that, of just like, you're two men about to throw down of each other and things are going right. And then he's just like, N-word. And you're like, well, I'm not a man anymore. I got to work through this. Because it's like, you're ready for something about me personally. And it's not even like, hey, look at the bald guy.
Right.
Because with Alan Cumming, I mean, it could just be a superficial read of him and then making a homophobic comment. But it also could just be, I know Alan Cumming and I know his background, so then I'm going to say something. Here it's just, these are two Black men and I'm going to shout, which has happened to all of, I've had people driving down the street and he shouted at me before. So
all of that. And for me, there was an episode of LA Law in the late 80s where a client had Tourette's, and it was the shouting expletives. Thank you. And that's where I first heard of it. And again, why this kind of movie and these things are done, because of that perception that that's all it was, right? And of course, it didn't do a deep dive into the psychology of it and all of the things. But another thought that I had, though, that I said to Leslie, though, was I know that, again, he was there to celebrate this movie, and the guy that played him, I guess, or is in the movie, won an acting award, or someone from that movie won an award, acting award, and who played John Davidson, who was not John Davidson from the 70s and 80s, who had like do you know that John Davidson?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Who always slapped his leg when he sang. Anyway, like 4 o'clock talk show in the 70s and 80s. Anyway, but this John Davidson, I understand this was a big deal, and supposedly he's somebody who in Britain has been sort of in the public eye for a while, right? Educating people about what the condition is. And they know, right? They know who he is. He's beloved there, or revered in a way. I'd never heard of him, right? But you know what I'm saying? It's like, so I think also people were quick to defend then, which again, defend disabilities. But here's the thing that some people aren't understanding. Some people aren't, some people aren't. Both this movie, I swear, and Sinners were movies that talk about, so one being absolutely based in reality and one a fictional movie, but set off on reality, right? Based in a reality. But both of these movies are triumphant in, right, this is me, this is, even though, you know, it doesn't end great for people in Sinners, but it's a defiant, right? It's a victory. It's that kind of a thing. It says a lot for the culture. So for people to say, to try to protect one moment, right, of Mr. Davidson and protect his dignity in his moment, but not think that they have to defend the dignity of not just those two men in the flesh, but of what the movie is saying, is really sad. And it's sad and infuriating. And again, this idea, because they said what's the other thing? They say that word a lot in Sinners. So why are they?
I saw that.
Why are they offended by it? And that's such a red herring, because again, we know that. Again, I'm not going to debate about whether or not even black people should use that word. I'm not going to do that. I go back and forth on it. Sorry. You know, but
that's consent.
That's consent. And it's different than someone who you don't know saying that to you. I don't even want people who I don't know calling me girl, right? Yeah. Because that says a familiarity that we don't have unless there are people, you know, you've been in conversations for a while and somebody says it, right? But if someone just walks up to me and goes, girl, no, you don't.
I think also I think Chris Rock was probably slapped in a movie at one point. That does not mean that he's like, just slapped me in the face, because it happened. I was in a movie where I got slapped a bunch or I got hit. I think that's just an absurd argument. Especially if you work in theaters, we do, like the preparation, and that it's not easy. At least the other thing that people dismiss the stress upon, like, it's not easy. Like, I know black actors who have to, you know, they're doing either or even the slave movie or the segregation, where they have to process a lot of racial hatred, and they have to, like, they need time before and after, both to get there and to stress from that. So the idea of just that you could just, because that was in a film, you can kind of then hurl that at them as the same thing is highly offensive to me. That's not even a serious argument.
No, I just directed a stage reading of a play that my friend Letitia Jones wrote. That's about the Fugitive Slave Act, and about a trial in Boston, where Boston, of course, was a northern state where there wasn't supposed to be slavery, but because of the Fugitive Slave Act, they could go grab people. And there's a guy a freedman who basically takes a mob and busts this other guy who's been caught out. And they send him to Canada, but the guy who did the busting is on trial. Anyway, there's a point where a white person who's a racist sheriff's deputy has to say that word a couple of times. And we had to prep for it. You know, when we did Zoom rehearsals, and when we were in rehearsals, she said, the actor, do I have to say this now? And we said, absolutely not. right? Absolutely not. And then when she did it at the reading, it was awful because it did what the word did with it, what it was supposed to do. And afterwards, I said, I know that was hard. And it was hard for her as a human who would not say that word to even have those words come out of her mouth, right? It was traumatic for her to even embody that person, right? And embody somebody who would say that word with a hard R.
Yes, and that raises a question, a larger discussion that I felt I specifically wanted to have with you, because it does speak to the power of the word, but also the fact that it still exists in such a potent way. Because you got this impression from people that everyone just grows up knowing this word, it exists, and like there's a sort of innocence to stating it, even involuntarily, but you have to be exposed to it, and you would have to know, especially the hard R. It's not like he was like shouting my N-word, because he grew up listening to a lot of Jay-Z or something. It was shouted in a way, from my understanding of the hard R, knowing as the epithet, and as people said, the condition, knowing it's wrong to say, so that all of that understanding of
right,
which is rooted in a sort of, has to be based on a cultural understanding. I think if, God forbid, if I had this illness, I don't know if really, if a Jewish person on stage or an Asian person, I would necessarily have a wealth of racial epithets that I could intuitively toss out to them. I don't fundamentally don't. And I think I think people just, do you think that it's just still there? Somehow that word that people grow up knowing or being exposed to in ways that doesn't exist with other ethnic slurs. Right?
Absolutely. I think that people just know that word, and it doesn't mean that you're a racist, right? I know nothing about this man's heart, right? So it doesn't mean that he's a bigot who goes around shouting that. Again, that's where, people sort of misunderstanding, or I don't know. I feel like that word is a word in the zeitgeist, and whether or not you embrace it, whether or not it's something that you would normally call people if you were able to control the things that came out of your mouth, it's a word that's there. It's like, again, not comparing a really awful heavy scene to the thing I'm about to say, but you remember in Uncle Buck when he goes to the principal's office for a conference with what the nieces, and that she has a big mole, and he has all these inappropriate things that are going through his head about her mole, and again talking about it being like skin cancer. That's not a joke, it's not funny, but it was played for laughs in that movie in 88 or 89 or whenever it was. But him going through it knowing that he wasn't supposed to say it, but him trying very, very hard not to comment about the thing on her nose. So it's there. I don't know. It's one of those things. It goes back to the fact that we are a people whose inhumanization and degradation made this country possible, right? Slave labor was the economy, right? I had a middle schooler who I teach in a residency yesterday ask why people could be racist knowing that was, what Black people went through. And I was like, but if you think of it this way, if you have been taught and have seen that Black people have no value, then it's easy to not make that, make the jump to they have value. And where we are now is people who never wanted to make that jump are now giving permission to go back to it, right? And so again, not all white, hashtag not all white people, but we know that because again, there are Black people who are fine with that. And
Sure. I
you
just
know,
think the prevalence of the word is not our fault. That's what really bugged me about that woman stating that about it was in Sinners, which I mean, it's a popular movie. Maybe John Davidson saw that, and that was like the first time he heard the word. The fact that this word still exists is that, and we need to own that. That's what I was so frustrated by that. Own that it exists because someone around our age, so, a Gen Xer or possibly younger, heard it probably in negative reference to Black people from white people. That is how the word still propagates. And I think there's a denial of that it's somehow, it doesn't, it's only the N word. And if it even exists anywhere else, it's Black people
no,
furthering it, which is not true.
no, it's not true. And again, and we've probably had this conversation because we've had lots of conversations that come back to these things, right? But we were born in the 70s and raised. I was born in 71, which was 3 years after Dr. King was murdered, but it seemed like such a long time away, right? He was murdered the year after my husband was born. My husband was born in 67. And the reason I say that is we were taught in the 70s and 80s that racism meant you said the N-word to somebody, or you burned a cross on their lawn, or you told them they couldn't go to your school. And even on sitcoms that we watched where there was a racist incident, it was never the characters we liked. It was all like Happy Days. It was always Sticks the drummer, who was a Black drummer who we never seen before, comes and they go someplace and someone calls him the N-word. But the idea is that a problem that the people who we see, Richie and Potsy and all those people, of course, they're not racist. It's somebody else, and it's a problem that's solved in 25 minutes, right? And usually the person who's been called that thing, we never see them again because they're not really a part of the story. And because we knew this from our parents, but because the idea of cultural and structural racism wasn't something that people called out, it was very easy even for us to ignore it, right? Mm-hmm. And now the structure is either you see the structure crumbling or you see new layers of the structure being built right now, right? So yeah, it's a word that's out there. It's a word that's known. Basically, my thing is just freaking apologize, right? Just freaking apologize for the pain that it causes. Because even that argument about, well, Black people say it all the time and they say it in the movie and the rappers and blah, 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 blah. You want to negate the pain. You want to negate our pain, and you want to negate that word causes pain or that anything causes us pain, and people will dance around the stage like Gregory Hines, who I was trying to think of a good Black dancer.
He's a great
tap
one.
Dance, the best. Him and Sammy Davis Jr., who I'm obsessed with, and I've been obsessed with for most of my life, obsessed. But I just want to tap dance around that, because if people have to face the fact that people still say that word, they have to face the fact that we are not a colorblind society, that we shouldn't be a colorblind society, and that people still actively say that word and have those, and not even but have those sentiments. And so to be in a place where you are in your tuxes, and it was the first award of the night at the BAFTAs, and to start the day like that, and for Michael B. Jordan's parents to be sobbing because their son, who has made it in the world, is subjected to that word, whether or not it was on purpose. It doesn't matter. If I punch you in the face, I'm still bleeding, whether or not you meant it or not.
No, it's like it's still the big night, and no matter how far you go and how successful, maybe he might win backside, whatever they achieve, but you're still going to be called the N-word. in public by someone, and it's a horrible thing. It's just sort of it to the point where it seems like a bad joke. It seems like that's something from a satire, like a Living Color or Richard Pryor show satire of just like, yes, you're gonna get this far, and of course someone's gonna still call you the N word, and that's why it's dehumanizing. And yes, we need to have the dialogue about that sort of intentional cruelty, definitely, or whether it's intentional or not. Definitely apologize for things that are cruel, that are hurtful, and that are depersonalizing, because it's depersonalizing. Even shouting like big titties at someone acknowledges that this individual has big, like this, you as a person have big breasts, and it's inappropriate to state it, but it's also a normal human response, right?
Right. You
Sexuality,
think,
right?
right. And you probably see that person. I have large breasts. And if someone said that to me, of course you notice them because they're there.
Yes.
But you don't got to tell me about it because I know, yo.
And if that's part of the disease, I think saying things that are just hurtful, then yes, part of navigating the world is to apologize for the pain you cause in the world. Like it's just otherwise, it's like the idea that like my son has a disability, but I don't think the world should expect, he should not expect that the world is going to give him piggyback rides. Like he has to navigate the world through a chair and whatever. There are ways you have to navigate the world to deal with it. I know if yourself, you probably do coping things to deal with the world. You don't expect the world to shift around yourself. And ultimately, people with disabilities can still be self-obsessed creeps. Like there's no way. I mean, we're all individuals.
They're horrible Black people who are just horrible. They're Black and horrible. You know, I get it. I know there are. And so it's not saying, again, at the bottom of it is, and I think not that you should have to go through these things to make people recognize you and recognize your ability or disability. And though I think it brings further understanding if you just come out and say, I'm sorry, that's part of my disability, and I'm really sorry that it hurt you. It makes people, if they're able to do it, want to understand, right? Mm-hmm. Because you've given it a name, you know. It makes sense. I had a student years ago who, and I'm not saying, I don't know what her learning style was, but I know that she, I was talking, it was a drama class that I was teaching for a homeschool group, and she wasn't looking at me, right? I'm talking to her, and to seemingly me, she's not paying attention. And I said something, and later her mother said, she was in middle school, I think. Could it be, I think that she is actually listening, but focus is better when she's not looking directly. I think she was drawing, right? And I ran into this with kids last night. So, and it was funny. But they weren't paying attention because they weren't paying attention. And they go, well, I have ADHD. And I said, me too. What else you got? They're like, ooh. So again, but being aware of the fact that I misjudged that young lady as just not listening to me, right? Because I wasn't aware. Being aware and having to think of it changed my view, right? And my approach, because I was wrong for judging her and that she was just being a jerk.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that, right? Like to say, oh, I'm sorry I'm sorry that it's, you know, that I made you feel like I wasn't listening to you. That's a human thing. That's not apologizing for your disability. It's just saying this is behavior that give the world, you know, how our world works. This behavior, mind not making eye contact while someone's talking, makes someone feel that you don't care what they're saying, and that's rude, and you're just clarifying but apologizing for, oh, that in that moment I made you feel like you didn't matter, and I am sorry. Here's why I have this issue. And that's not apologizing for disability.
No, and it's one of those things too. I realize that sometimes I look up as I'm getting my words together because sometimes I don't want to look at you and get my words together, right? It's sort of like the words are up there somewhere and I'm pulling them off the ceiling. But that could be disconcerting and look like I don't care about you. I mean, it's an old social psychology thing that if whoever has the power in the relationship looks at you when they're talking to you because they want you to hear them, but when you talk to them, they look away because the idea is I don't need to listen to you. And normally, if it's between a man and a woman, it's the man in the relationship who becomes the dominant, and I'm looking at you in your face, but I'm not going to look at you when you're talk. And we did that in my social psychology class, probably sophomore year, junior year. And it was me and a guy, and I actually was the person in charge of the relationship, I guess, of the conversation, because I looked at him, but then when he was talking, I wasn't looking. But again, I think that's also too, now I know ADHD stuff, right? That I didn't know. I don't know. All that to say, I can't say we, because there are some people who are on the pitchfork thing with what happened at the BAFTAs. I'm sorry that happened to anybody. I'm sorry that it happened. His condition is real. His condition is serious. And he should apologize for the harm that what happened caused. It's not apologizing for having a disability. It's apologizing for what happens on the other side of it, because if you are able to apologize to the queen, you are able to apologize to those dudes.
Absolutely. Enough said. Thank you, Lynne. Lynne Streeter, Childress, where can people find you?
I'm wearing my shirt, my Fine Beats and Cheeses shirt. It says 100% cheese. My sister and I, and Steven's been on a couple times. He's gonna make him come back. Our Fine Beats and Cheeses is our podcast where people come on to talk about their pop culture guilty pleasures that they're not sorry about or feel guilty about at all. You can also find me. I'm a theater professional and educator and playwright. Who uses theater to spread social emotional health stuff. And that's Building Better People Productions, bbpproductions.com. And also I say a lot of things by myself on the socials. So Lynne Streeter Childress, find me.
Yes, please do. Thanks again. Like, share, subscribe. We'll catch you next time. Take care.